The goal is to obtain 1 million yen by winning contests through radio and magazines using only letters, including clothing. How did we get here? He participated in an audition for the new challenge on TV show in 1998 and won. What I find very interesting is the possibility of another person being chosen instead of Nasubi. For example, Takashi Ito, person who was later selected for a different challenge. His personality seems to be more energetic, kind of like Nasubi. He came into this not knowing how much this would impact his mental health, thinking this would be fun and a chance to broaden his image. While he did become popular, a side effect of being on the show, he sacrificed a lot about himself in the process. Also note that this challenge that he auditioned for was not specified. He then travels blindfolded and with headphones in the snow with mysterious individuals to the location of the game show. In this new room, where he will be spending an ungodly amount of time, there is a kitchen, magazines on a bookshelf, and a table in the middle of the room. On this table, there are the aforementioned raffle tickets, a telephone, new letters, pen, and a radio. The room also has a bathroom and proper ventilation. At first, he finds the idea of stripping and being completely nude weird, but as time goes on, he seems to forget about being nude and doesn't bother to hide his genitalia. They leave him with a general understanding of the rules and how to play the game, but he's still confused wondering if this is a prank or a joke. I forgot to say this earlier, but there is no bedroom, forcing him to sleep behind the table out of view from the camera. At least they gave him what seems to be a blanket. Never mind, he slept naked. Weird observation, but I also noticed that you can't really see outside the windows, at least from his angle. You can only guess what time it is through the hue of the glass. I wonder if this may affect his sleep schedule or change it. He's talking to the camera now, and they mentioned that they gave him a notebook. He spends all of his day, 24/7, writing letters non-stop until he receives a phone call. His first of his many phone calls. Takes up exercise to keep his physical and probably to not become weak from sitting around all day writing letters, starting with sit-ups. I don't think he knows what he's doing. We can infer that he has no prior experience exercising because he's dizzy after a few reps. What I also find strange is the random but sudden blurbs from the radio about raffles. It's not like it's a continuous radio station. It only goes off when a raffle is being announced. I don't know if this is due to the editing of the TV station that this was on, or if this is somehow a special radio that can only do this specific action. Note that he has no food. At 11:45, we have his first win/prize win, giving him immense joy and satisfaction. He won a dozen jelly set produced by Kevin Food Chemistry. At this point, he has completely accepted being naked in front of a camera. This illusion is only broken when getting a prize from a post office worker. He continues to write letters while exercising a lot aside around, and he starts to speak to himself. 15:43, his second win. He won rice made in Tochigi Prefecture, marking the first time he actually gets real food and not a snack. Also interesting about this phone call is the mention of multiple letters being sent. I thought that he was only sending one letter, but it turns out he is sending multiple. Also, how is he distributing these letters? The problem arises, there's no pan/no way for him to cook this rice. How will Nasubi eat? The answer? He eats the rice without cooking. Very inhumane and gross. He then gets creative here using the jelly container as a conductor for his hot water, not knowing if this will actually cook the rice, but just trying things out. And at 7:50, we get the answer to that. Dangerously, he puts the hot water in the rice container on the gas stove. Again, this shows his desperation to eat. Somehow, it worked. The rice is probably not cooked properly, but it worked. He is very happy. 1950, his third win. He receives cash, obviously not useful in this situation. His fourth win. He receives body soap, so now he can actually clean himself properly in the shower. Actually, does he even take showers? How can you take a shower if there's nothing to dry yourself off with? Does he take a shower and then just stand there? 2025, his fifth win. He receives a spaghetti set, and unfortunately, he does not have a can opener, so he cannot eat it. It has been a month and some other information. 2145, his sixth win. He receives sake produced from orange. Probably not the best thing to have right now. Side effects are almost shown immediately. 2257, his seventh win. He receives a folding bicycle. He also got really lucky with both his seventh and sixth win, as this win only came a day after the previous one. Also pretty interesting is the fact that he sees the camera as a friend, talking to it and even dancing in front of it. Another effect of the prolonged isolation. It makes me wonder, what if the camera were not there? 24:16 gets creative here and uses his pen to carve out an empty sake can lid, using it to cook his rice instead of the packaging. He then does the same for the spaghetti can, so now he can eat it. Despite his conditions, his creativity is not lost. In a way, it kinda reminds me of cavemen and what they used to do. 25:36, his 7th win. He receives natto, fermented soybeans that go well with rice. Just what he was hoping for. His 9th win, 2 in the same day, he receives a pickled white radish snack food. I believe that he has started to mainly focus on writing for food prizes instead of applying for every single raffle he sees. Side note, the snack also goes well with rice. 26:38, his 10th win, 3 in the same day. He receives boned salmon snack. Now he has many side dishes with rice, so he should be fine for a while. This also seems to motivate him to write a lot more letters than usual. Most likely not a prize, but he receives panties from a girl. But only enough, he tries to wear the panties, but it's too small for him.
でもちょっと厳しいね。こんな小さすぎた。ちょっとね。全裸に戻る。
29:29, his 11th win. He receives a plush called Seo-chan, and he considers it a friend. He also gets a towel from this, so now he can actually take a shower. He also gets a discount coupon for some amusement park, but that's irrelevant. Important side note that I forgot to mention while watching, he names the seal Venus, so when I mentioned Venus, that's who he's referring to.
だからね、名前つけてあげないとね、かわいそうだね。そうだ。ナスビのお友達でビーナス。
31:28, his 12th win. He receives Yoro's egg sake, another thing he doesn't really need right now. His 13th win, 2 in the same day again. He receives strawberries, something healthy for once. Not quite sure how they remain fresh to the mail though. And at 32:43, his 4th win, 3 in the same day. Again, he receives Okame's boiled bean set. And at 33:02, his 15th win, 4 in the same day. He receives meat, literal meat. Again, I'm not sure how this remained fresh, but it is a win nonetheless. The meat is omugi meat, used as steak. He got 5 of them. This, as noted in the show, is his most expensive food win yet. He tries to broil the meat using a ballpoint pen. It worked. Also of note, I don't think he has any refrigerator. His 16th win, 5 in the same day I think. He receives a PlayStation game, which is called Densya de Go by Train, a monumental prize as this is his first form of entertainment. Sadly, it is just a game. He also wins a controller. Further on the seeing Venus as a friend thing, in his journal he acts like the plushie is a genuine person and writes that he can enjoy train play with his newly won game. The isolation is clearly getting to him at this point, frantically singing to himself, the camera, and at moments losing all train of thought. At this point, end of March, he only needs around 900,000 yen to complete the challenge, meaning so far he has gotten 100,000 yen in prizes / raffles, which is pretty amazing if you remove the context of this being a game show. It is now April.
まずはイーナスと朝のトーク。
本当に幸運の天使だよ、お前が来てからというもの。お肉も当たった。いちごも当たった。
At 38:29, his 17th win, he receives chocolate sweets from Baki, a company based in Italy. This is his first candy prize. His 19th win, he receives Yamucha set made by Yukuro in Yokohama. It contains big steam meat, big steam bun with pork meat, steam bun with pork meat thigh, shrimp bun, shrimp, crab, shumai, etc. But as with most food he gets, he is unable to cook them, so he eats them raw. His 20th win, he receives a doll of Toru Rikishi, which some of you may know as the extremely famous manga / anime Ashita no Joe. He also begins to talk to the doll like it is a living person as well. Even weirder, he tries to talk like he is the doll himself, consoling and giving himself motivation. Very weird thing to see. He continues writing letters. 42:30, his first win. He receives a Pokemon Death Mat. This was in 1998. And at 43:30, possibly the weirdest win of them all, he wins a live Issei shrimp. I have so many questions. He eats the Issei shrimp. He broiled it down. Don't worry. I have no words at all. Also, look how messy his stove is. Again, the effects of not having proper cleaning tools. Right on cue, his 23rd win. He receives a vacuum cleaner, just as I was talking about cleaning. Now he can at least clean the floor. Note, the vacuum was a Tepika produced by National. Just to keep track of time, it has only been 3 months. At 45:37, a very interesting event happens here. By him choosing to maintain his hygiene, he misses out on a potential prize that could have been literally anything. He could have been proper clothing, food, etc. This also answers the question of what would happen if he didn't answer the door. The package stays outside and he cannot get it. His 24th win, he receives tomatoes. Probably the biggest win of them all, and on a perfect note, his 25th win. He receives a TV. Specifically, a 14-inch wide TV produced by Victor. Sadly, it does not work and he spends his time reading the reference book for the TV instead. Why doesn't it work? Because there's no antenna. At 48-24, his 26th win, he receives a toothbrush and toothpaste. Looking back on his previous prizes, it's almost astonishing how much hygienic products he has won. I thought he would only win snacks and useless stuff. He still has no clothes though. It is now May and he needs 834,700 yen. In a very interesting move by the show's producers, they call a doctor to perform a checkup on Nasubi. The doctor took his blood pressure, touched on his body, and took his urine for testing. This also marks the first time in months that he has seen somebody other than a postman. He states that he will report the results later, not sure how he'll do that, and leaves the room. Also of note is how accepting Nasubi is of his current situation, being so accustomed to it that he doesn't really need to question things anymore. He doesn't get angry like he used to, just accepting of what is happening to him in his new reality. According to the doctor's report, he is in good health. I just wish that they would have done a mental checkup as well instead of just a physical checkup. His 27th win. He receives shoes. You could technically call these clothing since they help cover some of his body. And even better, the shoes fit him. While celebrating his 27th win, he gets his 28th win. He receives a barbecue gas range set, so now he can properly cook meat, if he still has it. 54-01, his 29th win. Note, he is running out of his main food source, which is rice. He receives a globe. 55-52. He runs out of rice. His 30th win. He receives the English conversation lesson ticket. His hopes are crushed as he thought this was rice. Also note that his facial hair is starting to grow in. 57-08. His 31st win. He receives dog food. Not quite what he wanted, but somewhat edible. He eats it. He hasn't eaten in 3 days, so his food stash has been diminished. His 32nd win. He receives more dog food. It's almost as if God is punishing him. He also eats this dog food. Somehow he finds it more delicious. Maybe this is due to the fact that he hasn't had real food in some time, or it could actually taste good. I'm betting on the first option. In a way, this is humbling him and making him appreciate the good luck he was having in the first few months. Now, he is back to square one, food-wise. Almost on cue, his 23rd win. He receives natto for the second time, his first real food in a while. However, he doesn't have rice to eat it with. He is still grateful. He eats all of it in one day. He was so starved for some food that he actually ate all of it in one day. That's actually absurd. Back to dog food. His 34th win. He receives fruit-flavored jelly, kind of like from earlier. It's not real food, but it will hopefully satisfy his hunger for a bit. Most likely he will ration it as to not repeat what happened earlier. He did not learn and ate all of the jelly in one day. His 25th win. He receives cosmetics, so at least he has something to maintain his hygiene. I also wonder if any of these magazines know about him, not only from just the show, but also from the absurd amount of letters that he sends to them. Sadly, but interestingly, he becomes used to eating dog food and drinking water. Far cry from his sake and natto days. This, in my opinion, is the best thing he could have ever gotten. His 26th win. He receives a water purification system. Now he actually has safe drinking water, and despite the food shortage, he actually has something he can look forward to. His 27th win. He receives a mug cup, almost in perfect timing with the water purification system. Previously, he was drinking out of empty sake cans. Unrelated, but kind of. I don't know why it's taken me so long to notice this, but there's cameras in every room, capturing every angle, except for the bathroom. That would be a violation of privacy. Every little move is being watched, which later you'll see why that's a bad thing. Just an interesting thing that I noticed. I'm not sure if this had some further mental effect on him, but it's definitely something. His 28th win. He receives healthy tea. Also, a little unrelated as well, but I think he stopped working out. Maybe he forgot, but you can clearly see him losing himself. Another great win. His 29th win. He receives a set of forks, knives, and spoons. I'm not sure why a company would be doing a raffle for this, but it worked out in Nasubi's favor. Also note the lack of music except for Nasubi's letters. Another deliberate detail the show creators made. It allows us to truly step into his world and see things through his eyes. And he's still eating the dog food, by the way. Finally, in almost perfect timing, he receives his 30th win. He gets rice. The thing he has been wanting for so long. His feelings are, I'll just let you watch it. It is now June and they do a little recap of what has happened so far. His 31st win. He receives duck meat, something to go along with his rice, and apparently it's super expensive, which seems to care more about. 1:14:36, his 32nd win. He receives a pack of 24 ice cream, and he has nowhere to store it. There was nowhere to store it, so he ate all of it in one day. Eating that much ice cream right now probably says a lot about his condition. In another great win number 33, he receives a kettle. Now he can boil water, which I presume he'll use to properly cook rice in. His 34th win, he receives seaweed, something that will go great with his duck and rice. He gets creative and makes a rice ball using rice and seaweed.
しかし海苔を炙りすぎて
ぐちゃぐちゃになっちゃったけど、これでいいですもん。おにぎりいただきますね。
His 35th win, he receives a poster of Miss Hirose, Miss Hirosu, I hope I'm saying that right, better known as Ryoko Hirosu, a famous actress. He uses rice again to put the poster on the wall, a very creative way. His 36th win, he receives an energy drink. Also note how full his room is becoming. The producer of the show, Denpa Shonen, comes into the room at night while he's sleeping, starts filming him like an animal. While watching, I really got Blair Witch Project vibes from this scene. Seeing him lie on the floor like that, no blanket or anything, was weird. Also know how shocked he is to see the producer. Anyways, he came to take Nasubi outside for the first time in months. Then, he takes him to the inside of a car, and they start driving to a new location. Turns out, the media found out his address. Obviously, to not ruin the game show, they moved him and all of his belongings. Let me also remind you that everything you see here was filmed live, broadcasted to a TV station, and he has no idea. I wonder if the TV will work here. 125:59, great win for Nasubi, his 37th win. He receives a chair and a desk, upgrading from his small table in the middle of the room. He'll probably also use this for sleeping. His 38th win. He receives a Japanese to English automatic translator. It can also translate into French.
ねえ、フランス語言ってみますかね、フランス語。
I never even thought to question this with all the other stuff going on, but I completely forgot about the topic of his hygiene, as shown here. Oh my god. What seems like the 10th coincidence, his 39th win. He receives nail polish, no words. However, I do wonder if these so-called coincidences are authentic or not.
ゴールの100万まであと55万飛んで440円
And that's all for episode 1. There are other episodes out there available, not all of them, but they are mostly the same as this episode. Opening prizes, writing letters, etc. More interestingly, Nasubi came to the internet in 2023 to do a Q&A in accordance with the contestant releasing a Hulu documentary on the show, him as a person. He answered under the Hulu official account, and a lot of his answers are quite interesting. I won't go over all of the questions, but I'll go over the major questions everyone has, and that I had. One of the more interesting answers comes from a question asked by Big Jazz Fan. He asked, "Have you ever seen The Truman Show? What were your thoughts on it if you have seen it?" In response, Nasubi answered that he had in fact seen the film, and deeply related to Truman, going as far to say that Truman's life was much easier than what happened to him. I find this answer very interesting, not only because he saw the film, but how he felt about it. When you compare the two on a surface level, they both seem to share the same hardships. Both of them were recorded without knowing the whole time, and they both were confined to an area. However, Truman was filmed since his birth. His whole existence was merely to entertain and fulfill an experiment conducted by an evil individual. Everybody he knew, family, friends, even girlfriends, were all actors controlled by the company. Even traumatic events that happened to him, including his father dying, was controlled by the company. Imagine if you realized that your entire life was fake and designed to entertain others. We do have to realize that the Truman Show is fiction. What happened to Nasubi was not. Him being stripped naked and deprived of any interaction, despite receiving prizes, did actually happen. So in many ways, Nasubi is right about Truman having it easier than him. Truman is a character played by an actor. Nasubi is a real person. You would think that Denpa Shonen was inspired by the Truman Show, but Denpa Shonen came first, and the Truman Show was obviously in development years before it actually came out. The release dates were probably a coincidence. The next question from Luke2080 asks, "How was this filmed and televised without your consent? Did you ever know it was filming? Ultimately, did you make any money from the airing of these videos? Really curious as to how these played out." Nasubi responds with, "Of course I didn't know these were being broadcasted. Back in the early days of reality TV in Japan, they didn't give contracts to participants. It was an entirely new genre of TV, and my manager did not protect me in the same way that TV stars are protected now. For compensation, I made 10 million yen for 1 year and 3 months, and that includes the money from the sale of my diaries from the show." By the way, 10 million yen is around $100,000. This response is very interesting. I didn't even know that he received compensation for this. I thought that him volunteering meant that he wouldn't be paid, and that he was just doing this to boost his name. I also didn't know that he had a manager, and this manager did not seem helpful in any way. The next question from Non-Exist asks, "Nasubi, how do you feel about the film Oldboy? And have you ever thought about using a hammer to get revenge?" For context, Oldboy is a movie similar to The Truman Show and what happened to Nasubi. Nasubi responds with, I was actually invited to a special screening of Oldboy in 2014. I think because I had a similar experience with the movie. I couldn't watch it without tearing up. It made me revisit many of the memories I had with Denpa Shonen. Instead of revenge, I would like to use that energy for something more positive, like helping people. It's great to know that Nasubi is still doing well. But it's obvious that he still carries some trauma from 1999. Him doing the show was a true double-edged sword, if one side of the sword was way heavier than the other. While he did become popular after the show and a huge celebrity in his own right, he endured a year and 3 months of torture for the entertainment of others. Being deprived of interaction, clothes, and proper food for that long, even if it's just only for a month, will have devastating effects not only on your mental health, but your physical health as well. On the topic of being celebrity, the next question from Links Jesus asks, how often do people recognize you in the street? Do they seem to know the truth about what you went through, or do they think you were consenting? Nasubi answers, yes, I am still recognized on the street, even 25 years later. I was even recognized in London, and when I went to Stonehenge in 2018, there were a bunch of Japanese tourists who couldn't believe I was there. I think they were more excited to take photos with me than Stonehenge. It seems the show had a worldwide reach, despite its original run in DVDs, only being distributed in Japan. Granted, some of these people who recognized him were Japanese, but it seems even British people knew who he was. The next question from Please Wash Hands asks, have you had any difficulties after the experience? That kind of isolation probably has to mess with somebody's ability to communicate a long time afterward. As far as the people who put you in the room, executives, producers, etc., have you ever received any sort of actual apology or compensation, and have you felt vindicated since? This is probably the question I was most intrigued to hear Nasubi's response to. He responded with, I was paid 10 million yen. After a long time, the producer apologized to me. He said he wanted to do something for me, and I think that his participation in the documentary shows that he feels remorse. To hear about what Tetsuya did after the show was over was something. You subjected a man to a year and 3 months, possibly longer, of torture and afterwards felt remorse after it? To be honest, I was expecting him to not say anything to Nasubi, but to not realize what you were doing is borderline torture is a little crazy. Where was your empathy when the show was running? I do appreciate him apologizing though. If this was a big company, they probably would have gave him less and done another run of the show. The next question from Grindery asks, since the contest, how have things changed for you? The way you live your life, your perspective on social relations between people, faith, entertainment? Nasubi responds with, for a while, it was hard to interact with people, but I did realize that humans cannot live alone, so I did my best to reconnect with people. My favorite superhero is Gundam. He's an animated robot, but the show does a good job of expressing human relationships. It's very emotional. I also make Gundam figures at home. I made so many I can't count. This further demonstrates the mental damage the show had on Nasubi, and the fact that he was supposed to just reintegrate into society like nothing ever happened. Not only was he a celebrity now, but he forgot how to socialize. Also note that mostly everyone in Japan saw him acting crazy on live television. And those are the better questions that he answered from his Q&A. I think it's interesting to see how he actually felt and his thought process going into the show and coming out of it. Hopefully he continues to be in good spirits, and I wish nothing but the best for him. One of the most interesting things I've ever watched, if not one of the most peculiar things I've ever watched. At times, I found myself laughing and definitely entertained by the show. Other times, I found myself feeling dreadful from some of the scenes in the show, like the part where he ran out of rice. Thankfully, his vibrant personality allowed me to watch the show without feeling completely dreadful or weirded out. I think it's also important to know that Denpa Shonen was a series of competitions, if you want to put it like that. There was also another competition where they made another comedian hitchhike from South Africa to Norway, and another competition where they made a comedian sit in a room and watch baseball matches. If the team won, they got food. If the team lost, they went hungry and the electricity went off. Honestly, that sounds way worse than what Nasubi went through. Yet nobody talks about it and there's no surviving footage of it. I didn't even mention Funiko's challenge. I find it weird how all of the punishments in this game show revolve around not eating, instead of more reasonable punishment like, I don't know, losing points or something like that. But other than that, thanks for watching my video. I know this idea has been sort of done to death, but it's a very interesting show. It also sheds some light on Nasubi and the very amazing person he is. I would also like to give thanks to the other amazing YouTubers who have made videos on the subject. They introduced me to the topic and their videos are just as great in their own right. Why not watch one of their videos? Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Peace.